Hey there guys, this is Obsidian Chill. Got another video for today, and in this one we'll be taking a look at the new ally, part of episode 46, Justice League Dark Cursed, coming out October the 5th, which is Zatanna. It is going to be available from the Cyborg vendor for 500 source marks as per usual. Now to take kind of a brief summary of it before we get into the in-depth, the timestamps and description and the comment section will be there to the relevant sections if you're looking for something specific. But we're looking at the combat ability. Slightly different, it's going to stun and then apply an attack debuff, as well as apply the Daze PI. Arcane Battery, after using 6 damage dealing abilities, give ability summon pets restore power and increase damage dealt, excluding some specific abilities. And then i.e. pets do 10% more damage for 14 seconds. And then we've got Out of the Hat. Abilities that apply a power interaction have a chance to pull a random animal from Zatanna's hat, granting a buff for 12 seconds with a 30-second cooldown, and the effects are as follows: damage reduction shield, power cost reduction, critical increased critical chance and movement speed, and then might and precision. So let's take a look at the damage passives, jump to the Excel sheets, and we'll break down these passives for you. Enjoy.
I'll misdirect, you do the real magic.
Okay, so to take a look at the damage breakdown, typically whenever there's a secondary effect or ability added to allies, so in this case applying a power interaction, also applying the damage debuff, they always nerf the damage if there's any kind of utility to the ability as well. So Zatanna's damage is pretty much right in the middle, certainly nowhere near the top, but once again, you're not running it typically for its damage. And the attack debuff, I mean, similar to Queen Diana in terms of her secondary passive, but same thing. There's much better options in terms of running Zatanna if you're going to run it for a combat one, like if you're running like, for example, like Static, his damage reduction shield, etc. Because the damage debuff is going to be super situational, and most likely it's not going to be really applicable for most players. In terms of the single target breakdown, same thing, same concept. Damage is kind of like right in the middle of everyone, just because it's not designed for single target. And on the boss damage, same thing. It's pretty much near the bottom, right above Tikal. But once again, you're not running it for its damage. You're running it for its passive abilities, which we'll get into here. But this is the damage breakdown for Zatanna. This is all compared at CR 414. So this will be max CR as of before the episode. And then these were tested at the Injustice Bounty and Infernal Conduct. So all the allies have still been tested at the exact same CR. Okay, so take a look at Zatanna's first passive here. We have Arcane Battery. Arcane Battery, after using 6 damage dealing abilities, give ability summon pets restore power and increase damage dealt, excluding the powers offering Fortify Golem, Godwave Strength, and Mercy Attack Protocol. And then at rank 10 does 10% damage for 14-second duration. So there's a few things to unpack here. In terms of ability summon pets, ability summon pets are going to exclude obviously artifact pets, Grim and Quizlet, those not ability summoned, and it's not going to apply for trinkets. Trinket pets, once again, trinket pets are not ability summoned, they're trinket summon. So essentially what that applies is going to be Brick and Crystal, Fury Guardian, maybe I don't think Watcher actually attacks, but technically Watcher, Nature's Swarm, Ice's Snow Devil, Gadget Suppressor Turret, Robot Sidekick from the iconic powers. I believe it should apply to Mental's Mass Hysteria Specters. It doesn't right now. I treat that as a bug of giving that feedback, but I believe it should count for that. Even though it's a temporary summon, they're still ability summoned. And then it would make that supercharge a little bit better, because not only would you get the critical increase, but you also would get the damage increase from the pets for that specific time. So that could increase that supercharge viability as well. So just to show you how it's going to look here. So we're going to summon Fury. So it's 6 damage dealing abilities, and it gave a list of exclusions. So Mercy Attack Protocol, Godwave Strength, or Offering, if I wasn't going to run Mercy, it'd be Offering, Fortify Golem, etc. Those ones don't count towards the 6. So for example, if I use So we're going to do 5 abilities, and then you're going to see this white aura under me, and then the 6th attack will apply to Fury. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see that aura under me? Now 6, it's going to apply that aura to Fury. And obviously you didn't see it apply to Quizlet down the corner. So that means that the damage buff has been applied to Fury. But if I do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it's not applying because the Fortify Golem or Offering or Mercy Attack Protocol and Godwave Strength do not count towards that 6. So you may think, it's great. Zatanna is a new ally for pet DPSing. Pet DPSing is saved. Unfortunately, it doesn't really work out like that. So throughout my testing, and a lot of it's RNG based because obviously you can't necessarily control when Godwave procs, and then if it doesn't line up properly with like Offering, then there's a bunch of factors into pet DPSing, or I should say like parsing pet DPSing. I mean, it's all going to kind of average out in content. That's why it's not a big deal. But in terms of kind of showing you proper results, that's why I don't like pet DPSing or pet testing, because there's just so many variables. But throughout my testing and then a few others as well, it's actually somewhat of a damage reduction for doing like a proper pet build, which would be Source Shard, Mercy, and then a Quizlet, or even if you're doing like Source Shard, Grim, and Quizlet, etc. It's a bit of a damage reduction for that because you have 2 abilities that don't count in the chain, yet your whole purpose is that you're always using Godwave, and then you're always using the power every 6 seconds. So that's where it leads to that damage reduction overall, because it doesn't count towards those abilities. So I can somewhat see the logic of it, but at the same time, I mean, it's not like, pet DPS is really like a created meta in this game. Pet DPS is nowhere near competitive without Source Shard. So you have to be a pet DPS to be Source Shard, and then you're basically there's a drawback to running Source Shard from Zatanna. So they created an ally for pet DPSing, but then not really pet DPSing, true pet DPSing with Source Shard. So ironically, it actually helps out non-Source Shard builds. So for example, you're just running like Robot Psychic. So if you're just running Robot Psychic just as your powers, then just a part of your normal rotation, Robot Psychic is going to get that buff duration throughout the entire raid, as long as he's surviving and not dying. But so you don't have to do anything because it's completely passive. You're going to be hitting 6 abilities plenty of time. So that means all the time using 6 abilities, 6 abilities, 6 abilities. Robot Psychic is constantly buffed throughout the entire instance. And then you'll see in a moment when I jump to the combat log analyzer, kind of compare the difference. But it's a little bit of drawback in terms of how that worked out. It may work out in the end, or because Zatanna is still like a worthwhile ally, especially for pet DPS in general. So you may still run it, and it's just going to be slower damage. But it's still if you're a pet DPS main, then you still want to get Zatanna regardless. It's just that the overall damage in a lot of instances may be lower, also depending on a bunch of factors. So that's essentially how the ally works. You just have to any kind of 6 damaging abilities. We'll apply it. So once again, if you didn't see that before, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th is going to apply to me, 6 is going to apply to Fury, and then you just kind of keep going. So it's going to apply the duration again, and I can just kind of keep going. You can see it apply to me, then apply to Fury, and you just keep rotating. So that's why it's completely passive extra damage in a Robot Psychic rotation. But if you're using Source Shard and a Mercy Attack Protocol, or like a proper like kind of pet DPSing build, then it becomes an issue because the 2 of your main abilities you can't use. Like the whole point is you want to get as many Godwave procs as you can, and as many Godwave procs to line up with Attack Protocol. And then at the same time, technically you can wait. So say for example, you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's about to apply. Then I could hit this. Then into 6. Now I've got the Godwave proc and the Attack Protocol applied to Fury. So that's where it can work out in that case as well. It's just making sure that lines up, because that's kind of an RNG situation, that you have all of them off cooldown at the right time. But that's how you would have to do it. So if you're pet DPSing, you'd have to set this up properly. You can't just wait either. But once you get to 5, then you can I can hit this, I can hit pet, and then apply. So that's the one advantage. That's probably where I'm thinking that their logic was coming from, is that since you can set up the fifth attack, basically once the fifth attack happens, then you hit God Wave, then you hit the attack protocol or attack protocol, God Wave, whichever order. Then you hit the 6 ability, so then you get the damage increase for that duration. So that's how you'd have to do it. Whether or not that is practical in content, that's something I can't speak to, especially not as like a Pet DPS main, but that's how you'd have to take advantage. So overall, it's going to be somewhat of a damage loss, but in the right situation, it can certainly be a net positive in terms of damage. So let's jump to the spreadsheets and kind of give a little bit further breakdown. So to take a closer look at Arcane Battery, now in this case, I did a baseline damage rotation to test the out of the hat passive. So this is basically, I'm just using Robot Psychic as passive and using just normal damage AoE rotation. So without the ally equipped, my Robot Psychic's about 6 mil, average DPS is about just under 20k a second. And in terms of the damage, mid-maxing, and then with the Arcane Battery applied, just as an extra passive damage, in the same duration of time, I got an extra 1,000,000 damage out of Robot Psychic. My DPS increased by almost 4,000 a second. And you can see here from the rockets, minimum was about the same, 17.5, 17.6, but then the max jumped from 23 to 26. We've got the melee attack, which is the main damage from Robot Psychic. The minimum went from 11k to 20k, and then the max was 42k, up from 24k. Oh, sorry, 18k. That was a wrong order. So 18k to 20k, and then we had the 24k up to the 42k, and the range attack being 11 min, 12 min, and then 12k, 13k max. So that's where you can use Zatanna just as completely passive damage. As long as Robot Psychic is surviving, then you're just getting free damage. You don't have to worry about any kind of RNG procs from Batman or Laughs or the out of the hat passive. In terms of the damage increase from rank 4 all the way up to rank 10, you're going up pretty much 2%, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10. And the duration runs from 5 seconds to 14 seconds. So it's like I said in that previous clip, you can use Arcane Battery just as passive damage for, if you prefer to run Suppressor Turret as gadgets, you can just pop that on, get the extra Suppressor Turret damage without doing anything extra. It's just completely passive. Same thing, Robot Sidekick, just extra passive damage. Or if you're using a main pet build with Sorcerer and Mercy, then it's basically just a timing thing where you have to make sure you get the buff right before you'd use God Wave, and then or in combination with Offering, and then get the max out of that. So it's a little bit tricky because you have to pay more attention. And then if you're not paying attention, then it kind of be an overall damage loss, but it has much more damage potential. Or you basically just take the free passive damage. So to take a look at Zatanna's second passive, we have Out of a Hat. Now what this does is abilities that apply Prowler action have a chance to pull a random animal from Zatanna's hat, granting a buff for 12 seconds with a 30-second cooldown. The effects are as follows: a dove, a damage reduction shield, an elephant, power cost reduction, a rabbit, increased critical chance and movement speed, and a tiger, increases might and precision. So this does draw parallels to the Batman or Laughs, the luck of the draw. So draw a random card during combat to gain a buff for 20 seconds with a 30-second cooldown. And then Batman was might dominance, like all the stat buffs. Enigma was the power reduction. Frigor was the critical chance increases, and then Gaia was the 10% health increases. So it's very similar. It just basically just differs in terms of how it's applied. So Zatanna, you have to apply Prowler action, which should be okay for most rotations off the top of my head, especially for single target. For like Might, for example, it might be an issue for precision sometimes, depending on what power you're using. Obviously, if you're using Tornado Pull, it's not going to work. Different abilities will be fine, but you just have to have a power and action ability, which I'll show you what I mean by that in a moment. The other main difference between them is you'll see when I jump to the spreadsheet here for ranking up, but you see here abilities that apply power and action have a 100% chance. So if you're lower level, so it's rank 6, 7, 8, 9, will not have a 100% chance. So it's not a guarantee that it'll apply that buff card with Zatanna unless you're rank 10. So that's kind of how they've kind of introduced it, where the higher the rank, the better in terms of having that chance to apply. Where say Batman Laughs, you're always going to get a card every 30 seconds, and it lasts for 20 seconds. where compared to Zatanna, it's only going to last 12. So how it looks. So by power interaction, any ability that you see here, it's going to say power interaction, burns enemies, inflicts frostbite. It has to apply a power interaction. So for example, like smoke grenade, burning enemies take additional damage. That's not going to have any effect. Same thing as 50 cal. These just consume power interactions. They don't actually apply it. So a shrapnel, once he burns enemies. So if I use, say for example, this frostbite, you're going to see a card, pull an animal, and that's the dove. So the dove was that damage reduction shield. And it's the same process. It's the same concept as RNG, just applied just with Batman and Laughs. And then you'll have that for 12 seconds. So basically with Batman and Laughs, the card kind of flashes very quickly, and a lot of people just miss what buff you have, which, I mean, it's not really going to impact your rotation anyway, because you're going to continue on doing the same thing. It's just if you get a critical one or a stat increase, great. If you don't, then you just keep going and wait for another 30 seconds. The same concept applies with Zatanna. It's just that you have a little bit longer of an indication of where it is. So, I mean, if you're using like a supercharge or something, I mean, obviously that the card doesn't last the entire duration. It's just there for the beginning. But at least you have somewhat better idea. Like if the tiger comes up, you can see that a little bit better than like a quickly flashing card. So if you've got the tiger up, then you know that's going to be the minus precision, and you could use, drop a spy drop, or, use a supercharge, like that. So it is a little bit more practical from that standpoint, but once again, it's still going to be RNG based. So let's jump to the spreadsheets and break this down a little bit better for you. Okay, so a closer look at the out of the hat breakdown. So we have the 4 pictures here. We have the tiger, rabbit, elephant, and dove, which you'll see in game as an example. In terms of how the buffs break down, so like I said before, as you increase the ranks, the percentage goes up. So rank 6 is 60%, 70, 80, 90, and 100. So that's the main difference I feel between this and Batman Last, besides the duration, is that unless you're rank 10, then you're not going to have a guaranteed chance, which, overall will drastically change the damage perspective and basically the proc rates and everything. So in terms of the might precision buff animal for the tiger, 12-second duration, might buff percentage goes all the way up to 10, precision buff goes all the way up to 5. Paradox reduction goes from 5 in increments of 5% up to 25%. The crit chance, I mean, the movement speed increase, that's not really applicable. I mean, I tested the allies forever, and was it Zoom? I forget what it was, but it's the most marginal impact that you can ever have for movement speed increase. Half the time you're grounded anyway. It's not going to be applicable in content. It's more just, I guess, for like messing around and like, even if you're doing a race, you wouldn't be in combat to proc this, and then you'd have such a low chance, even if like a miracle you started a race, hit something in combat, which would slow you down anyway, for the mood increase. So whatever. They just wanted to add crit chance. I guess a bunny's fast, so then we'll just apply it for the mood increase. But I would disregard that. So the crit chance, you're going out all the way up to 5%, and the damage reduction, we're doing 5% incremental buff to 25%. Now this, I didn't test this, but I would imagine it does not stack with the others. So ally damage reductions do not stack. So that's why if you're using like, say like the E-bomb shield, and then or not the shield, but the E-bomb artifact damage reduction, then you do like a static shield for the damage reduction. They don't stack. It's not like you're going to get 25, 35, 35 and have like near 100% damage reduction for X amount of time. They just don't stack. But that's not going to be playing too much of an issue, especially because it's just going to be a random proc anyway. If you're a tank, you're not leveling this up just to get the dove. Maybe if you're like a battle tank, that would work out. Like say if you're like an earth battle tank, that'd be great, because then you get the power cost reduction for jackhammer spam, the might buff, you get the crit chance buff, and then you get the damage reduction shield. So really, this is a much more beneficial ally for battle tanking compared to Batman Laughs, just with how the procs are. Because the Batman Laugh one, you get the health one and the other criticals, but so this is certainly an advantage there. But as a healer, DPS, controller, really the damage reduction might come in handy, but it's going to be such an RNG nature that it's not like you can plan for it. It's just like, okay, I got some free damage reduction, and that's all it is. So to take a look at the actual baseline here. So I did a munitions AoE rotation. Basically, you need the PI applicator, so that's why I have flat cannon for the burning PI. Just a straight standard trans-strat Quizlet setup. And then I did 10 30-second parsers on the 5 targets. And then did the same thing with just Batman or Laughs. Did the same thing for Zatanna. And then I did the same thing with Zatanna and Batman or Laughs being applied. So to take a look at the damage comparisons of my baseline, total damage, I didn't include, like if you're going back here, I didn't include the Quizlet and Robot Sidekick damage because Batman or Laughs and Zatanna wouldn't be applicable. I mean, it's not going to change that buff. So that's why I didn't use the overall damage here of 109 million because, I mean, it's not going to be necessarily applicable. I'm only using the damage that I did because that's what the allies would impact. So my baseline was 96 mil. Batman or Laughs was a 3.57% increase. Zatanna was a 1.13% increase just on her own. And then together was a 4.5% increase in damage. Now, once again, it's a 5-minute DPS sample size. There's not too many encounters in DC. I'd say the average encounter duration would be like 4 or 5 minutes, and that's including Elite. There's plenty of fights where less than 5 minutes. So I feel like that's still a good representative sample size, but at the same time, it's still completely RNG. You can't control which card you get. It's just that it's completely passive, so I'm not doing anything. So the question that you're going to have to ask yourself is that, are you going to run Batman or Laughs and Zatanna, or are you going to run like a combination of Static and Shazam as well? So the main difference here is that these two allies, they're completely passive damage. You don't have to do anything. Where with Shazam and Static, you have to use a supercharge, you have to summon your ally. Ally's going to be a 90-second cooldown. So that means you get 3 card procs in the same time you get an ally summon. So yes, Shazam and Static will have a greater damage increase, but they're all situational. You may not get supercharge regen, you may not be in a group with that. If you are, then certainly, of course, if you're swapping in scrap, you've got your head mod, chest mod, everything, you're in a group with a healer spamming a 10k EOG, then yeah, you're going to get more damage increase overall with Static because you're constantly using supercharge for the critical increase. And then same thing with an ally, as you do throughout content, you're going to have your Shazam ally for the damage reduction there. Not reduction, but the damage increase. So it just depends on your playstyle as well. If you're doing like longer instance content, or you just want it's essentially free damage. You're not doing anything. You don't have to sacrifice anything in your rotation. You're just doing what you're doing and getting a flat almost 5% increase. That's still going to be RNG, but also have some greater effects as well. So that's what it is. Really, you can't do a direct comparison between these two allies and then Shazam and Static because of the RNG nature. It's just not going to work, but it's just going to be that situation of if you're in a group that's always doing supercharge regen, like I said, then yeah, sure, Static's going to be amazing. If you're in a group that, or not even necessarily, you could still, if you don't want to even level Zatanna just for the rank 10, because if you're not leveling rank 10, then you're not even getting a guaranteed crit chance. So there's literally no point to running Zatanna if you already have, say, like Shazam leveled or Static, because if it's only rank 7 or rank 8, it's only 7% chance, 70 and 80% chance. So you may not even get a buff. And then basically then you have a damage decrease because you didn't get something for that 30 seconds and you have to wait again and then see if it procs and etc. Where at least Shazam and Static, same thing, it's guaranteed damage whenever you use a supercharge, whenever you use an ally. So that's what it basically boils down to. It's still, a very good ally to level. It's just that it's pretty much only useful at rank 10 because of how it's kind of structured. So if you have any further questions or comments, take a look in the comment section. They might be answered there, or you can ask me there as well. So take care, guys, and we'll see you next video.